Yikutel Ben Yaakov here from the Israel Dog Unit in Kfar Tapuach in Israel with yet another broadcast connected to the corona pandemic. You know, we're hearing all kinds of really interesting thoughts. We're seeing videos online. I mean, we're in lockdown here in our on our base. We're only leaving for special operations, and I'm sure people around the world, Jews around the world, everyone around the world, they're looking for something to do, and they're looking online, and they're seeing all kinds of different thoughts. We as Jews obviously have to examine what's so special about this time. Why are we suffering so much? So many funerals, so many rabbis, so many Roshei Yeshivot, heads of Yeshivot. People are dying around us. We're seeing the horrible, horrible pictures. In Israel, we're getting hit, not nearly as hard as other places around the world, other countries, but certainly this is a really, really serious pandemic with no cure in sight, with no end in sight. Obviously, there's going to be unbelievable repercussions on the economy even after this is over, if it's ever over. And obviously, we have to try and understand why, what is incumbent upon us to do to stop this horrible pandemic. And within the word corona is the word keri, which means coincidence, which means happening. And we all know the Rambam, we spoke about this in previous videos, about how we have to research why this has come upon us and what we need to do to stop this. What is God trying to tell us? And it has to be obvious enough inherently in these symptoms or lack of symptoms, and in the cause, and in measure for measure, and other examples from the Torah that are similar in character to this pandemic. We have to understand, and we are able to understand what God is trying to tell us. Otherwise, how can we fix things if it's not something which can be apparent and inherent and blatant in the signs of this disease and in this punishment? I want to first say, though, that there is hope, because God does not bring a punishment or an illness without there being a cure. And He does not bring punishment upon us unless there is a way that we can learn what needs to be done and fix what needs to be done before it's too late and before there's future and further tragedy. And so, what can we learn from this? I want to just bring down something which I saw in the name of Rabbi Meir Mazuz, the Rosh Yeshiva of Kisei Rachamim, and he brings down a Gemara in Sechet Tanit on Daf Chet, page 8, and he says the following: Yesh lanu nechama purta mikorona hazot. There's something positive in this whole pandemic. The Gemara says, Shebimei Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani habakafna umotna ayurav magefa. There was a horrible famine, and also a magefa, and also a plague. And he learned from Pasuk, the Gemara learns from Pasuk in Ezra, that you should pray for one specific thing. You shouldn't pray also for the plague and also for the famine. And which one do you pray for? And so I ask you, watching this video, which one do we pray for? For the famine first, or for the plague? And the Gemara resolves that first you should pray for the famine, because if there is food, God would not bring sustenance to the world unless there's somebody to eat it, unless if there's somebody to bless upon it. So if we are able to save ourselves from the famine, and we sustain ourselves, that's a sign that God wants us, in His infinite mercy, He wants us to do tshuva, and we can also then resolve the problem of the magefa, of the plague. And so he learns from this. Look at Israel. Look at the rain we had yesterday, and this whole season. God is shining His countenance upon us. He wants us to do tshuva. We're so close to it, and we can bring upon us a great redemption and a great refuah, healing to this plague, if only we see what needs to be done, and if we fix these matters. And so we see that we have the sustenance. Now we have to understand that what's upon us to resolve. I just want to end with one other medrash we see that the Medrash says in Shmot, Rabbah Tetvav Bet, it says the following: "HaChodesh hazeh lachem rosh chodeshim rishon hu lachem l'chodshei hashana." It says, "Yavo HaKadosh Baruch Hu shenikra Rishon," God, which is called Rishon, which is called first. "V'yibaneh Beit HaMikdash," and He will build the temple shenikra Rishon, which is also called Rishon. "V'yifra Esav shenikra Rishon," and He will take vengeance against Esav, against the nations, as we see happening in Iran and in China and in Spain and Italy, for all the horrible persecution of the church. V'yavi Mashiach shenikra Rishon, He will bring Mashiach. That's a sign. When you see that it come against the nations, it's a sign of redemption. V'chodesh Rishon, in the month of Nisan, like we say, V'Nisan nigalu from Mitzrayim, we were saved in the month of Nisan, and so too now, when we were already in the month of Nisan, we will be saved. Im ken yisei she'akadosh baruch hu yeshpil et Esav v'yavim et keren ha'Mashiach b'chodesh Nisan. We see that God will bring down Esav, and He will redeem the Jewish people, Keren, which is also a semel and a remnant to Corona, in the month of Nisan. I want to just add briefly, I recently received a video, a shiur of Rabbi Travis, who brings down a very interesting connection between the lockdown, if you will, which is very similar to the nidui. Somebody was put in excommunication. Also, it's done for a period of 30 days, and he can't be in the synagogue, and he's locked out of being in the synagogue and from being part of a minyan. And this seems to resemble the restrictions that have been put upon us as a result of the coronavirus. I'd like to add on to that some of the reasons why somebody is put into excommunication is, number one, that he's eating kachim, sacrifice, the holy things outside of the temple, and that one of the other reasons, given one of the 24 reasons why someone is put in excommunication, is for giving away land to the Gentiles and giving Jews to a Gentile authority, and of course respect for the rabbis and so on and so forth. But what can we say when even our rabbis and Rosh Yeshivas are falling victim to this horrible tragedy? Maybe we can learn from this that there are certain parallels in our time, that we see that we have shown a lack of respect for the temple. We created our temples in our Jerusalem and Bnei Brak, and worse in Borough Park and in Chutz La'aretz, and we thought that we can make that a replacement for the temple. And so God is telling us, I don't want your small temples, I don't want your fake temples, I want you to come up to my temple. Why doesn't God have a right to a temple on the mount, and his crown on his palace? And for giving away land, we see that this happened 2 days after the Trump deal was exposed, was revealed to the public, where we're giving away 70% of Judeans, and worse, we're offering the Arabs to worship on the Mount. 1 billion Arabs are welcome to worship on the Mount. We're giving up our sovereignty on the temple, and of course giving a lack of respect for each other. There are many issues. Of course, there's personal issues like Lashon Hara and materialism and Shabbat and all these issues which we need to correct. And on a national level, obviously the issue of faith in God and issues connected to the Beit HaMikdash and God's holy temple. So on that note, I'd like to say, B'Nisan nigalu b'Nisan atidin nigael. There is hope. We can stop this pandemic immediately. It's up to us to show our faith in God on a personal level. Of course, issues of Lashon Hara, just like there was Hezker, Jews were placed outside of the camp for 7 days, an additional 7 days, 14 days, resemble the restriction here. And of course, there's an issue of Shabbat, if we observe Shabbat, and there's been so many sacrifices on the issue of Shabbat here by municipalities that are publicly desecrating the Shabbat recently. And of course, our illness of materialism and the exile and Aliyah to Israel, these are all issues which we need to correct and can correct. And God willing, we will correct immediately, so that in 5 days, when we usher in Pesach, we also usher in a redemption, just as it was in the time of the redemption from Egypt. And we also usher in a complete refuah to all of those who are sick. Meher Rabbi Amen.